Hey everyone, welcome back to the Beyond Dentistry podcast with Dr. Dan Greenberg. I am here with Dr. Jason Auerbach. He is also known as BloodyToothGuy. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Dan. Nice to be here.
Thank you. So, as you all know, if you've been listening in, I ask cool questions to people who are dentists, who also do awesome things within dentistry and outside of dentistry, people who have entrepreneurial mindsets, and who have found their niche within the scope of dentistry and outside. So we're going to start off by just a general background of Dr. Auerbach. So tell me a little bit about your upbringing, and then where you went to dental school, and then how you got into oral surgery.
Sure. So I practice right now in New Jersey. I am a New York City, like Metro New York kind of guy. I grew up on Long Island. I went to Syracuse undergrad, NYU for dental school, Kings County downstate for OMS residency, and then lived in the city until my first and second daughters were born. Came out to Jersey and started the practice that I'm in now. So basically everything has been in the Northeast.
Very nice. Yeah, and I mean, I'm not in oral surgery. My good friend's actually at Kings County, but it's hard, from my understanding now, at least, like there's a lot of group practices. So how did you get into the space of starting your own practice, and how did you navigate that entire space?
So when I was in my second year, I did a 4-year program. So now there's a significant trend toward the 6-year program. When I was in residency, I finished training in 2003. When I was in residency, it was probably about 50-50. And I was very private practice oriented. I knew that clearly. I did not have any delusions of grandeur, if you will, in terms of doing full scope oral surgery. I was trained in an amazing program, full scope. And when I came out, I did full scope, but I always knew it was going to be private practice. As a second year resident, I was basically taken in by two of my attendings who were practicing private practice in Manhattan, which to me was the dream, right? Practice in Manhattan, the center of the world, the city that I lived and entertained and hoped to exist in for my whole life. And I was given the opportunity to become an associate with them. So right out of residency, again, they scooped me up. I was their associate. Quickly, though, it was clear to me. I mean, I've always been very entrepreneurial. You know, from the time that I was in high school, I was doing other things to kind of like earn money on the side and all that kind of stuff. So I was always building businesses from a very young age. So that was, they were great to me. They were kind. They were nice. But the practice just wasn't what it, in my mind, needed to be. And because it wasn't, I looked for other opportunities. I was working part-time for a guy in northern New Jersey in Bergen County. And ultimately, I left the city professionally, worked for him for a few years, and you hear stories about associates who are promised the world, and then it just doesn't go that way. Kind of a similar story. And so I started Riverside Oral Surgery in 2007. So I left in February of 2007. I left that practice. My second daughter was born. I bought a house in Bergen County, and I was basically essentially professionally homeless. So I was working as an itinerant oral surgeon in 9 different offices. I found some office space a buddy of mine showed me, and the rest is history.
That's great. And did any of the patients that you had or connections, referral network that you had move with you to the new practice, or did you have some sort of restrictive covenant where you couldn't practice as close as you wanted to from that location?
So I was not able to compete directly, although there was a negotiation as I left the practice that I would leave some stuff on the table in order to kind of open where I wanted to open. And so I did that. And I was able to retain a fair number of the referring doctors. You got to remember, so as an oral surgeon or any specialty dentist, you're basically referral dependent. Especially then, there was no Yelp or Google or anything like that. So it was really 100% based on your referral network. And quickly I was able to kind of recapture some of the relationships I had there and build new ones. And again, I haven't looked back. That moment in my life and this is a common theme as you kind of look through my entire evolution. That moment in my life was a really significant perceived failure or loss that yielded a tremendously positive outcome. I mean, by and large, I find that in life, a lot of people, like I say this respectfully, I'm 49 years old, you're a younger guy relative to me. You'll see there are things that you think you want, they won't work out for you every time. Hopefully it all works out as it should, but when the things don't work out for you, opportunities open themselves up to you, and they tend to yield really even more significantly positive outcomes than what you think you even wanted or what you thought you wanted.
Right. And I do think, like, I'm not saying that you were a failure or you failed, maybe you would say that, but, I think stepping outside of your comfort zone is sometimes scary. And sometimes you do need to take like the 2 steps back to like reground yourself and then move 5 steps forward towards something else. And I think also in your case, I could just imagine like how scary it is that you have, patients that you're seeing. You were probably busy at the practice, or at least seeing patients, and then starting something fresh from the ground up. Like, how many patients were you seeing a day?
At that time?
Yeah.
In the previous office? Yeah, 12 to 15
Yeah.
procedures a day. Yeah, I mean, I was busy. As an associate, I was doing extremely well. The practice had grown substantially. Listen, if I happen to love oral surgery clinically, I feel like, I'm as far as dental alveolar surgery, as good as you can be. I say that without trying to sound like an asshole, but I mean, I really do exceptional dental alveolar surgery. I've loved it. I have an aptitude for it, and I'm passionate about it. And so I was able to build a good reputation doing that. And also, I'm very focused on the patient experience and referral relations and outside optics and marketing and things like that. And so the combination of those 2 skill sets has allowed me then to build even as an associate, my business. And then thankfully it allowed me to build a practice. I mean, we started with 4 people in 1,300 square feet, and I now have 105 employees. We have 10 Riverside locations, 3 other locations, 20 surgeons now that work with me. So it's I mean, we've built something special.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. So can we go into how you went about starting the practices and how that process looked like for you, and how you were able to replicate? So obviously, like, you are the guy, like you are the oral surgeon that that you could be. So how is it that you're able to replicate, like, the same way if you walk into a McDonald's, for instance, you have like the same experience from office to office? Obviously, dentists are stubborn. Like, there's a lot of dentists that are stubborn out there that want to do dentistry the way that they learned at their residency, and then they walk into your practice and you have a very specific experience that you want the patient to go through. How do you standardize that across these offices?
Well, so that's like a multi-part question. So the patient experience, by and large, has a lot to do with the team that you set up around the doctor. It has a great deal to do with the systems that are in place. It has a great deal to do with the technology, the office feel, all of those kind of intangible, not that those things are intangible, but they are. The doctor is, so long as he or she is ethically appropriate, right, doing the right thing every day. It's the thing that I say when I interview a doctor. It's like, I talk to you about the fact that I didn't prepare for this. I don't prepare for my interviews either. I don't care what your pedigree is. I don't care, that you did this or you did that. Like, I want to talk to you. I want to see you as a human being. I want to be able to see if we can relate to one another. If I understand you and you understand what I'm trying to build here, and if you're that person and you get it, and actually that's what it reads in my ad, if you will.
Yeah.
It's like, do you get it? Do you understand what it takes to really deliver the optimal patient experience? Can you even define the optimal patient experience? So, I mean, I built the practice with the thesis that I would take an office of a retiring oral surgeon who had a very good reputation with maybe some clinks, like maybe the office was antiquated, or maybe the technology wasn't there, or maybe the front desk wasn't great, but if the surgeon was good and also appropriate in terms of his or her ethics. It turned out they were mostly hymns, older gentlemen who were retiring. And so I would find a younger surgeon who could expand the offerings, if you will, do kind of a little bit more progressive surgery. We'd build technology, we'd built out the offices, we'd market the offices, we would train the staff up to the level that Riverside was. We wouldn't call it a Riverside until it hit certain benchmarks. And then we would kind of unveil it as a Riverside oral surgery. So that we would own the practice for a certain amount of time and hone it before we would put it out there as a Riverside. And so we did that a couple times in Bergen County. And then we had this opportunity in Livingston, New Jersey. So Bergen County is northern New Jersey, highly dense population, relatively affluent county. The patient population's sophisticated. They're in the city to dine. They're in the city for all kinds of things. And so they understand really good quality care. So that was, to me, the differentiator for Riverside Oral Surgery, that we would provide almost a hospitality spa, like boutique hotel experience in a healthcare setting. And so we did that in Bergen County successfully, 3 offices. And then we had this opportunity to acquire a practice from a gentleman who was unfortunately not well. So his practice was idle for 5 months. And we tested the concept with limited risk because the practice wasn't really doing anything. And we didn't have a reputation there, but we had a very good associate who we put into that office, and he is killing it there. He's doing probably 6 times what that gentleman did in revenue before he left. And so we proved that out, and once we felt comfortable that our system worked and that the brand was more powerful than even just the specific surgeon. Obviously the surgeon has to be good outcomes, really good with doctors, really good with patients, really good with his or her staff. And so once you have a good doctor who understands the Riverside way, if you will, but is innately exceptional in his or her own right, you could put that person almost anywhere and they're going to succeed, especially if we're marketing them and we're supporting them with whatever technology they want. So now we have 4 fellowship-trained surgeons, which is subspecialties within oral maxillofacial surgery, cleft and craniofacial, head and neck, microvascular surgery, TMJ surgery, and cosmetics. And these guys are highly, highly skilled people, and we support them doing what they do. They'll refer within the network, and it's a very good little business model.
That's nice. So if a patient needs TMJ surgery, then you would just refer them to that office with that surgeon that has that qualification.
That's right. So I don't do TMJ surgery. I'll do arthrocentesis. I used to do some arthroscopy. Of course, I trained on open joint when I was in residency, but I don't do that type of work. And we have a guy who finished a fellowship in Arkansas, and he loves it. He's exceptional at it. And so to have him in our mix is fantastic. He actually did an open joint today with our cleft trained guy. The two of them went to the OR at Hackensack, and they opened a joint. They
very nice.
Somebody in a different way than I can.
Yeah. So within the different practices, do you have 1 oral surgeon there, 2, and then do you get the oral surgeons like out of residency? So you're talking about them being maybe not all being young, but like on the younger side, maybe you want to like build them up to where like this is where they stay for their career. But are they out like right out of residency?
So yeah, I mean we definitely recruit right out of residencies. That's absolutely something we do. But younger surgeons, despite being highly capable surgeons when they come out, it's a different mindset when you come out of residency and you're an oral maxillofacial surgery resident for 4 of 6 years or whatever it is. You come out with this mindset. And then it's kind of an adjustment when you get into private practice and you kind of realize what it is that we do day to day. And it's so a lot of what we do is we tell these young resident or young people out of residency, like, don't worry about production. Like, everyone comes out, they want to go gangbusters and they want to just really produce as much as they can. We don't care. I tell them they don't have to make $1 for the first 6 months, meaning for the practice. Because for me, it's more important that A, they understand what we're trying to do in terms of the patient care experience, and B, that they develop relationships that will pay them dividends over their lifetime. I don't ever hire a surgeon that I want to leave this practice. In fact, in the history of Riverside Oral Surgery, we've only had one associate leave, and he left to go to San Diego in the middle of COVID. So it's like, I can't compete with San Diego. It's San Diego. So
San Diego,
right? So we've never lost an associate to a competing practice or to a practice locally, or even New York or Connecticut or whatever it is. I mean, we've not gotten every recruit we've hoped to get, but we've never had an associate who's worked for Riverside Oral Surgery leave Riverside Oral Surgery, except for this one guy who we're still in touch, and he's great.
Right. It was just he needs to get out.
So I think actually of all the things that I've done, and like I have all these offices, and I have a really tremendous, group of people who work for me, with me, whatever it is. For me, that's like it makes me like, I'm very proud of that, and I don't have like pride as a general thing,
right?
But for sure, like that I can say that speaks to what I'm saying, which is to say, I bring people in, they believe, they excel, they all do really, really well. I mean, all of them. And that's that's a really important thing for me. That my service.
I don't know if this is getting too personal, but and you can deflect if you want, and I can ask a different question. But what's your structure like with them to have them stay like an extended period of time or for their career? Do they take part ownership in the practices that they're in, and like what structure do you have set for that?
So this is a great kind of like segue into like where things are macro for dentistry and oral surgery, and what's going on with Riverside Oral Surgery and all that. So you probably are aware that there's a ton of DSO and private equity and all this in dentistry now. Corporate dentistry, it's got a bad word. It's kind of a bad word, bad rep. And DSOs, like anything else in the world, there are really shitty ones, and then there are ones that are not shitty, that actually care about delivery of care, that actually care about like the patient experience and the doctor experience and all of that. So up until maybe 2 years ago, I never even thought about private equity. I could not even tell you what EBITDA meant. I didn't even understand what that acronym was speaking to. And in the last couple of years, I've gotten a tremendous education in that. I've always been business minded, like I said, always entrepreneurial, but I'm not a numbers like finance guy.
Right.
I'm a guy who's all about like the delivery of the care and the relationships and the marketing and just building revenue, not building like bottom line shit. That is ridiculous in my brain. Every dollar that we would make, we'd put back into practice, and we'd buy the better whatever. We always paid for the better implants, the better bone graft.
You're product or service driven rather than numbers driven.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And then we were approached about 2.5 years ago. So then we had 11 offices or whatever it was, and we were approached by literally every national, well, not literally every, the vast majority of national oral surgery groups. We were approached by significant numbers of general dental DSOs, and we were approached by investment banks, like traditional investment banks, not brokers who say they're investment banks. And all of these different kind of avenues in terms of like, holy shit, your practice you thought was worth 2/3 of what the average of the growth, it's worth multiples of your EBITDA, which is free cash flow, for those who don't know, profitability, if you will. And so we kind of like walked the path of trying to figure it out. And it was very clear to me that on a macro scale, what's happening in oral surgery, which hadn't been happening up to this time, is that there's consolidation. And so if you want to enter the New Jersey marketplace with a strong brand and the really premier practice here if not the Northeast, Riverside Oral Surgery, the practice I started, which is
Right.
crazy. It's crazy. It blows my mind.
Yeah.
So we went about trying to figure out the best thing. It was very clear to me I never would sell to a general dental DSO. Just was not in my ethos. I didn't really want to just be kind of an add-on cog in a wheel, if you will, on a national strategic oral surgery practice. For me, I feel like I have much more to offer, significant intangibles, right? And I didn't want to be in a multi-specialty platform that was run by endodontists, let's say, though I respect endodontists tremendously. I think if anyone understands oral surgeons in terms of the business of it, it's endodontists. But I do think that endodontists and oral surgeons are just different minded. And I think to have a platform that maintains the integrity of oral maxillofacial surgery, that supports and is run by oral maxillofacial surgeons, that has a clear charter that delineates the delivery of care from the finances, was to me the paramount to if I was going to do something.
Which makes sense.
So we actually set about to find private equity sponsors, if you will, investors. And we found guys who are great, who had real tacit knowledge and real specific experience, and were aligned with us in terms of what we were trying to do. So we brought on private equity in September of 22. Right after the new year, we partnered with kind of the second group in the platform, which was a 6-doctor, 3 office group in semi-competing but complementary geography. And so now we have quite a sizable oral surgery platform. We have another practice under LOI, which is 3 offices, and we've got another practice, 2 offices that should be soon. So we're really building right now this platform that is oral surgery specific. And what we did was, when we did the deal, I gave, and my partners at the time gave, profits interest to every single surgeon that worked for us. And so then every single surgeon that worked for us became aligned 100% with us in terms of their profits interest. And then when we did the deal right around New Year's, there was an opportunity for all of us to not be diluted. So what we did was we all went in, every single one except for maybe one, at different levels, of course. And so every single one of my surgeons, except maybe 1 or 2, whatever, are full partner, not full equivalent partners, but they're equity partners in the platform. They now understand. They have total visibility to the numbers. They care in a different way. And they have a say in terms of the direction of the practice. I have young guys who have not been here that long that are they blow me away in terms of the way they think. I'm very good at what I do, but some of them I think is a little antiquated, right? I've been doing it for 20 years. And so for me, I'm very focused on this other thing, but there are so many different avenues with the digital stuff and just different ways of doing things that disrupt the markets that we enter. So to have younger people who are smart and driven and are incentivized, and that they actually are owners like me. So all of my doctors basically are partners in every single one.
That's awesome. And I think that it's different than a lot of the structures of the current DSOs, because that's basically you're an employee, right? And you have to do what they say. And at least in this, and I've always thought about this, because one of my goals is to start at least a practice at first, but I would like to start multiple, which will eventually come. But that was one of the thought processes that I went through, because I've seen the DSOs. My brother works for one for optometry, basically. And you see that you don't have a say. You want a new piece of equipment, you don't get it because it costs too much, right? They're looking at the numbers. They're looking at the bottom line. They're not looking at the employee or the doctor and what they can do. They're looking at how much, we have to pay him this much. We can just find someone else off the street and get them for this amount, because they want to provide, basically, you're trying to provide the highest level of care. They're trying to just, kind of skim the surface of it.
That's
right.
I will tell you, for general dentists, and I don't want to, again, there are DSOs that are great and they are differentiated. I mean, I spoke with chief clinical officer of a really well-respected DSO, general dental DSO, yesterday, or the day before. I think it was yesterday. And their focus is high-level practices that are doing really like creative stuff and are focused on the patient experience and all of that. That's in stark contrast to many of the general dental DSOs out there that are basically consumerizing and turning dentistry into a commodity, right? So the patient, unfortunately, most patients are uneducated on the differences, and that's something that you have to kind of build into the experience, right? Oftentimes they don't know the quality of the dentistry. They just know that they're having a positive experience in a beautiful office setting or whatever it is. But really, I think the way I think about things is, if you pay attention to, I always say this, like, attention to detail, right? Obviously, everyone uses that terminology. Like, everyone says, oh, attention to detail, attention to detail. But if you pay attention to detail in everything that you do, it implies to the patient, even if they're not aware so much, that you pay attention to detail in everything and anything you do, right? So everything and anything. So if the miter in your crown molding, if that's the kind of, I don't have that, I'm very five here, but if you have crown molding and the miter is like off by something like 8 degrees, it's visibly not 45 degrees, then if you don't care about that, how are you going to give a shit about like the taper or whatever, the shade or whatever? If the toilet paper is shit, like you're trying to save money on toilet paper, like you're going to be trying to save money with the lab that you use, right? So you got to care about every little detail, because to patients, especially in the geography that we serve, the demographics that we serve, it's everything. Like, we have patients that come in, it's not that they want to be ripped off, but they don't care as much about the cost as long as they're getting the proper service, the proper care. And again, that's, listen, I'm fortunate enough to be able to serve that type of community. Not everybody is, but that's a big thing.
Yeah, I mean, it depends what population you're serving. Like you were talking about, like educated versus uneducated patients. Like some patients look at dentistry and they're like, oh, well, for a tooth extraction, this I can get it done here for this, price, or I can get it done at you for a little higher price. I'm just going to go there. Right. But what they don't see is like the pain associated after the success of whatever you're trying to do, the implant placement, like the coordination with the dentist. They don't see that, and they just see like the dollar value. And it was funny because I was on Instagram today, and I looked at one of these companies that are trying to commoditize dentistry by offering like yearly cleanings and whitening for $200, and it's like an unlimited amount. And the patients who are going to pay that will ultimately go there, but I can guarantee you that they haven't had a cleaning or whitening session in a long time, but they see $200 and they're running there. So I think like every practice has their market, and you figure out where it is. And like, there's going to be a market for these DSOs that are offering, mediocre care for a good price, and practices like yours, which is focused on the service rather than the cost, basically.
100%. And frankly, listen, I mean, take the ethical piece out of it, right? I mean, you got to assume that people are hopefully always trying to do their best. Mm-hmm. But I think that you can be trying to do your best, and maybe you don't have the best training, or maybe you don't even really know exactly the nuance of what you need to do. And a lot of those people are, the age has really nothing to do with it. It's really, to me, a lot about kind of how you were trained, and even the continuing education piece is a huge, huge thing. Mm-hmm. A lot of people who trained when I trained weren't putting a lot of implants in residency. Right. I mean, in fact, to some degree, the GPRs were putting in more because mm-hmm. they had an implant minded chairman or program director. Periodontal guys were doing more implants. So it was incumbent upon me when I came out to learn. So when I came out of residency, I was placing tissue level Straumann implants. I don't know if you know what that is.
I do. They don't place them anymore.
Right. By the way, all the research that Straumann ever did was on back then was tissue level implants. It took the micro gap away from the bone, and I have patients that come to my office today that I placed tissue level implants on, and there's no bone loss. I saw one today, literally very little. Not everyone, but this is a strong theme. But the beauty of placing a tissue level implant is that it had this platform, and what we would do is put the solid abutment on for the dentist, at the restoring dentist, and we'd put an impression coping on and send the patient over. If I put a solid abutment on a platform, it had to emerge where it needed to emerge. Otherwise, the whole thing was garbage.
Right.
So I really honed my placement, just the perceptual ability piece of it, through placing implants that there was very little margin for error.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's a ton of margin for error. I mean, it doesn't matter. People place like, I did a guided case today. I don't need to, but I did a guided case today. The fact is that with angled screw channels and all kinds of
multi-unit abutments, you can
it doesn't even really
you can
matter
correct
anymore.
It, like 33% or
right.
more.
Yeah, it's crazy. You're right, 30-degree angle abutments and stuff. It's nuts. But nonetheless, the mechanics of it is you want it to be perfect.
Right.
That's a pride thing for me. When I send an X-ray to a dentist who's referring me their patient, it looks great. If it doesn't look great, even if it's great clinically, it emerges where it needs to, but it doesn't look so great on the X-ray, it's a little bothersome to me.
Right.
The fact that I care about that comes through, but it all comes from the fact that I made my bones in a time where I had to actually have a skill with my hands. And that's not to talk about the digital stuff is amazing. Technology is great. I don't place an implant without a CBCT. But you can get a surgical guide back. It doesn't fit or it breaks, and you're dependent on guided surgery.
Yeah.
What are you doing? What the patient is, and you are screwed.
Yeah.
So,
patient's number ready. You opened it up, and
right.
Yeah.
So
I want
to.
No, go ahead.
No. It's fine. Go ahead.
So I want to hop into BTG because what came first, BTG or your oral surgery practice? And just tell me how that all emerged.
Okay. So the practice preceded BTG by many, many years. Again, I finished training in 2003. I started Riverside in 2007. By the time I started BTG, it was 2015. I think I had 3 or 4 offices at the time. BloodyToothGuy came about because I'm a little bit of somewhat of a tech geek. Not really, not in a technical sense. I just like software and applications more than the actual understanding of it in terms of the science behind it. But I was sitting there. I had teenage or preteen daughters at that time, and they were very involved in Instagram. And this was pre-TikTok and actually pre-video on Instagram. So I literally was like, okay, let me see what's on Instagram. I went on Instagram, and at that time, Dr. Pimple Popper was on Instagram, maybe had a few 100,000 followers, and that was a time where there was really very little dental content, let alone surgical content. I think maybe Mike Appa was on. There's a guy, PNW OMS, who's a friend, Ben Johnson, who practices oral surgery out in Seattle. And there were really a couple of other guys. And I was like, I think there's something here. So I thought of a name, BloodyToothGuy. That comes from a very close friend of mine's daughter had a stuffed animal called Broken Tail Guy. And it was named Broken Tail Guy because it had a broken tail. It was an elephant with a broken tail. It was so pure and simple that it was genius. And the way it sounded to the ear to me made sense. So BloodyToothGuy came about. And I started posting pictures of literally bloody teeth. I was like, if people look at people popping pimples, maybe they would look at bloody teeth. So
better than that.
So I think a lot has happened to me kind of because of the right place at the right time. Instagram was looking for content, and I had it. And as they evolved into video and different forms of video and all that, I was there to fill that content void for them, and they pushed it. And frankly, I've never once paid for followers. I never signed up for anything, nothing like that. It's all organic. It's real. And I have followers across the world. I mean, with the exception of, I don't have many followers in Asia, but South America, the Middle East, Eastern Europe, Russia, of course, all over Western Europe. And so I think maybe other than Asia and Africa, it's great.
You're covered.
Yeah, I really am. Yeah. And so I have this a lot of interest. And as of late, in the last year or so, Instagram has been like filtering all the stuff that is bloody or whatever it is. So that really affects me because I'm not, other than the fact that you see I go to like music and I eat sushi. I mean, I basically post surgical pictures and videos, which is, I'm going to say it's like shadow banned because I don't even know if that's a thing, but it's definitely not pushed. And it's definitely like, I have warnings on my account every day. Like, you're going against community guidelines. I'm like, no, I'm really not. People are actually, they follow me because they want to see this. But I don't want to, I don't bitch about things. It's just, it frustrates me a little bit, but what am I going to do? I have 100 other things I need to do. So, so we've done things. I've worked with companies that I actually really work with. I would never sign like exclusive. So I work with a very specific implant company. I work with Straumann, but I use ZimVie's bone graft Puros. Definitively, I've been using them both. They're two totally different companies. I love them both for different reasons. But if I'm going to do a deal with Straumann and they have regenerative material, sorry, I use Puros. And that's actually the authenticity of it is I think what brings people to me. They trust it. They believe it. And I think that's where the value is. So, you know, I use Noasis membranes and I use, like I said, Puros graft and I use Straumann implants. And that's what I use. But the surgical instrumentation was something that was really interesting. I had a guy come to me who owns a company called TBS Dental, TBS Instruments. And for years, he was like in my DMs, sliding into my DMs. And, you know, I get hundreds of DMs even now, and I just don't pay attention. But something caught my eye, his attention to detail. He came in, we met for about a year and a half during COVID. We literally honed surgical instruments that were designed by us, the balance, the pitch, the angle, the hand feel, the quality, everything. And we came up with a surgical instrumentation kit that's designed to give you everything that you need to kind of basically do what I do, more or less. And we were able to build this awesome surgical kit. And then we came out with a line of elevators, and now I have that too. Cool. So, yeah, it's really cool.
And is that used exclusively in your office by all surgeons?
No. So, that being honest, no, it's going to take time to get all those kits here. It's really only been for, let's call it 6 months that we've like had
That's very cool, though.
But yeah, it will be. It's great. It's great. It's really great for, honestly, younger general dentists who are, don't have to be younger, general dentists who are surgically minded, because it has everything. You know, it has the curette, it has the elevator that I would use, the forceps, it has a periosteal elevator that also doubles as like, you know, another thing. And so it has everything that you would really need to do basic exodontia and some minor dental alveolar surgery. So it's really good, and it's distributed through Patterson. It's great. It's been a great situation.
Oh, it's through Patterson too.
Yeah.
That's very. I gotta try it. And so you kind of touched down on your followers. What types of followers do you have? Like, are they mostly dentists? Are they mostly people who just like the gory, gooey stuff? Yeah.
So no, the vast majority of my followers are dentists. The demographics of whom are, you know, let's say call it mid-20s to late 30s. There's a slightly female predilection, so like 55-45, which actually speaks to kind of the dental student now.
Yeah.
So it's dental students, it's foreign and American dentists. It is mostly people, obviously, who are interested in surgery. And then, of course, some freaks, you know, like people who want to see bloody teeth. Like... Yeah. I mean, I have people like, dude, that's some fucked up shit, you know, like, I don't know, whatever. But yeah, that's some crazy shit. I'm like, that's my everyday. And again, like, I don't like look for it to be gory, because to me, it's not really gory. It's what I do. But, you know, it serves that purpose for some people as well. Yes.
Yeah, it's just like they're high for the day. They're like, oh, look at that too.
Yeah. But I will tell you that there are kids, like young children, who look at, there are people in dental school who like can handle that stuff, and certain people don't want to handle that stuff. So it's kind of like innate in you as a human as to like, is it so repulsive that you can't see it, or is it intriguing enough that you really can't look away?
Right.
For some people, it's like a combination, but it's age independent. It's socioeconomically independent. It's professionally independent. Whatever you do, I mean, I work with people who don't like it, and then I literally will meet like a buddy of mine who's a chef whose daughter watches it, and it's
teach their own.
Yeah, exactly.
Has that influenced your practice at all?
It's influenced my practice in indirect ways. It's influenced my practice in being able to attract really good young surgeons who are interested or who know me because of Bloody Tooth Guy. It's influenced my practice. You got to remember, well, you may not know this, in the beginning of Bloody Tooth Guy, for the first 4 years, I was totally anonymous. So when we started, it was 2015. And I say we, it was me. So when I started, it was 2015. And it wasn't clear like what the HIPAA laws were, and it wasn't clear what my competing surgical practices, if they would use it against me or whatever. And then like the world shifted, of course. Forget the COVID stuff and all the political stuff. I'm saying like people's acceptance of and focus on digital media and social media it's like central to life now. So it became something. But I'm not a TikToker. Like, I'm not doing dances. I know that that's not all TikTok is now, but like I always thought of it that way. I'm 50-year-old. I'm going to be 50 this year. Like, no one wants to see me on TikTok. Like it's just not what it is. I'd show surgical stuff. It's become somewhat of an educational site. I get that a lot. People are so kind to me, and they tell me that I'm like inspirational, and I've taught them more than they learned in some formal setting and whatever it is. It's really great for my ego. I mean, this is kind of a tangential to the conversation, but like I'll go out. So I'm in northern New Jersey. I'm in the city every couple nights a week. I'll be out, and I could be standing in like like a great restaurant, like waiting to go to the restroom or something like that. And I've had many times like dental students from NYU or Columbia come up to me, be like, "Are you Bloody Tooth Guy?" And it's great for me. I'm like, dude, I'm this like, middle-aged dentist from Jersey, but that's what I am, like legitimately. My wife will be with me, and she'll be like, another guy, like she like, it goes to his head. It does. It's great. In what world am I remotely recognizable or famous-ish?
Right.
I went to that DIA. You know what DIA is?
No.
So there's a conference that was started 4 years ago called Dental Influencers Alliance, and it was started by a couple of Instagram influencers. This is pre-TikTok. So now you have like the dentist and these guys who are like, they have 17 million or 100 million, I don't have followers. But back then it was really like, dentists showing dental stuff, right? Forget Appa, who whatever you think, I love him. I mean, I think like what
I like him.
Exceptional. But I mean, I think, I don't know, I lost my train of thought, but DIA. Yeah. So I went to DIA the first year, second year of DIA, I like outed myself from being anonymous to showing my face. And I had a line. You can go to CE events, and basically it's like, a couple of people want to ask questions of the presenter at the end. I don't get a line of people who want to take selfies with me.
Oh my God.
And then I went to the party, and so this was like 4 or 5 years ago. And so I'm like, 45 years old or whatever. I go to the party. There are these like dental students and like younger dentists, and they're like, they just want to talk to me and
that's crazy.
Give me love. And like, it was really, really, it blew my mind. Totally surreal experience for me. And like in that moment, in that room in Arizona, I was like a famous person, And so it's great. I mean,
that's really amazing.
It's pretty fun. It's great.
And my last question, because I know, we talked for a while, but so where do you see BTG going? Where do you see your future? Like, obviously, I know you said that I'm young, but you're still young in a lot of people's eyes. So where do you see your practice going and your future within this profession?
I think it's funny. A lot of people in your generation see me, as BloodyToothGuy. A lot of people in the oral surgery world understand what I'm trying to build in the oral surgery world. I would really love to build the preeminent national oral maxillofacial surgery group that's focused on really, really high quality care, really great delivery of care. And although backed by private equity, because that's really the only way that you can scale these days, predictably, independently, that we will be consistently focused on really never letting go of what it is to actually yield positive outcomes for patients. So that's like my professional aspiration. I can tell you that if I've learned anything, you can't really predict. Like, you can hope that you're going to have something in the future, but you really don't know. I mean, I do feel young. I don't, other than like my back hurts, I feel great. Like, I feel energized. I'm out a lot. I enjoy my existence tremendously. I see a lot of music. I'm going to continue to do that, to travel. My goal in life, if you want to hear that, like where I want to like end up, is I want to buy a piece of land in Tuscany. I want to sit there. I want to eat like cheese and bread, olive oil, drink an amazing couple of bottles of red wine every a couple of days, and trade my services to like the old woman who's got like a periodontally involved tooth number 8 with her wheelbarrow, and like coming up to me like with a fresh tomato and maybe like a sprig of whatever, rosemary, and like, I'll take your tooth out, just give me the tomato. Like that's what I want to do. That, I swear to God, that's what I want to do with my life at the end of it, the end of it all, whatever. Yeah. But I've got 2 young daughters, young anymore. I have a college-age daughter and a high school daughter. Yeah. And so we have some time here in Jersey, nice. New York. I mean, I have a lot of stuff I have yet to.
Yeah. Like Entourage-esque, Ari Gold-esque.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. I think that we had a great conversation, and what you're doing is great. I mean, something that I could see myself doing within general dentistry. So hopefully we keep in touch, and I'm excited to see what else you do.
Definitely. Listen, man, I mean, for real, I say this is not just like lip service. Any way that I could be of help to you. I mean, I love what you're doing. I think, you're influencing and inspiring a lot of young people who are going into this profession. And I think that that's tremendous. People need that. And yeah, I am absolutely happy to be here for you. I will tell you, there is a young lady who's starting Columbia Dental School who like slid into my DMs 3 years ago and has been watching and like recording for me and all this kind of stuff.